My name is Linda. I'm 67 years old. I want to talk about something that feels a little embarrassing to admit out loud, especially to a bunch of strangers on the internet. I retired last year at 66, and I'm just going to say it right out of the gate. Retiring was a lot harder than I expected it to be. I think we all have this perfect picture in our heads when we're still working. We see the commercials on television. We see the couples walking on the beach in matching white linen shirts. You imagine sleeping in until 9 o'clock every single day. You imagine the slow coffee on the back porch while you watch the birds. You imagine finally being done with that office manager desk where I sat for over 30 years. But the truth is, once the celebration is over, you are left with a very strange and quiet reality. I had my Social Security set up and directly deposited. I had my small pension from the dental office ready to go. I had my new Medicare card tucked safely into my wallet. On paper, I was completely ready. My budget was locked in on my fixed income. I'd even made the big move down here to Lakeland, Florida, leaving Ohio behind. I wanted to be closer to my adult daughter. I thought I'd done every single thing right. But there is a very specific kind of quiet that happens in a house when you don't have anywhere to be on a Tuesday morning. It's a heavy, uncomfortable quiet. It makes you second guess every decision you've made since you were 24 years old. I'm not a victim here. I made these choices myself. I'm the one who signed the retirement papers and packed the moving boxes. But I wasn't prepared for the feeling of just drifting without an anchor. You wake up and the Florida sun is coming through the blinds in the bedroom. You realize you don't have a single person expecting anything from you today. And that feels weird. Not good weird, just weird. It's a hollow feeling right in the center of your chest that doesn't go away after you drink your coffee. You've spent 46 years being the reliable one at the office. You were the one who knew where the physical therapy files were kept. You handled the angry insurance companies on the phone. You organized the birthday lunches for your coworkers. Suddenly, you're just a lady in a kitchen with a half-full cup of coffee that's already getting cold. You realize nobody actually needs you to do anything at all. You could sit in that chair for 10 hours and the world would keep spinning just fine without you. I'm not going to give you a 5-step system for a perfect retirement today. I don't have one of those to sell you. I'm just going to tell you exactly what happened to me over this last year. I'm going to tell you what I figured out while sitting here at this floral plastic placemat on my kitchen table. I remember my absolute last day at the physical therapy clinic back in March of 2023. I had been there 4 years after leaving the dental practice where I worked for decades. I was just so incredibly tired. Tired in my bones, you know? Not just the kind of tired where you need a nap this weekend. I was the kind of tired where you feel like you've been working continuously since 1977. My coworkers were incredibly sweet on my last day. They got me a huge sheet cake from the Publix around the corner. It had way too much frosting, but it was the thought that counted. Everyone stood around the break room drinking out of small paper cups, saying how jealous they were. They told me how lucky I was to be heading down to the sunshine full time, leaving the daily grind behind forever. I smiled and ate my piece of cake and thanked them all. I walked out to my car with a small cardboard box. It had my desk plants, some pens I liked, and my extra sweater that I kept over the back of my chair. I felt like a prisoner getting a pardon from the governor. I put the box on the passenger seat of my car. I drove home with the radio completely off. I just listened to the turn signal clicking at the stoplights. I pulled into the driveway, walked through the house, and sat in my backyard. I just looked at the grass for a very long time. I had about $310,000 total in my savings and 401k. My house was completely paid off. I felt like a millionaire for exactly 20 minutes. But then the sun went down. The next morning, I woke up at 6:30 a.m. like I always do. 40 years of habit doesn't just evaporate overnight because you had a party. I looked at my closet and realized I had no reason to put on real shoes. That was the exact moment I felt the panic start to set in. It wasn't about the money yet. It was about the vast amount of time stretching out in front of me. I had so much time. I had no clue how to fill it without someone telling me what to do. So I want to go through several distinct things I've noticed since that very first morning. Just a few things that made this major life transition so much more complicated than I ever thought it would be. These are the things I really wish someone had sat me down and told me before I packed up my desk for the last time. The first thing I noticed was that I actually missed the rigid routine of work. I missed it a lot more than I missed the actual paycheck itself. I spent years complaining about the morning commute. I complained about the annoying phone calls from angry patients and the way the office printer always jammed when I needed it most. But when all of that suddenly stopped, I had this massive gaping hole in my day. I didn't miss the job itself. I didn't miss filing insurance papers. But I missed having a place to be where people expected me to show up. I tried to fill the hole with television. That was a huge mistake. I spent about 3 straight weeks just watching the morning news programs. Then I would watch old movies from the 50s until I felt like my brain was literally turning into mashed potatoes. I felt so incredibly guilty about it. I'm 67 years old. I've worked since I was a teenager in Akron, Ohio. And here I was, sitting in my pajamas at noon on a Thursday like I'd just given up on life. My older sister Donna called me from Ohio one afternoon. She asked what I was doing. I lied through my teeth and told her I was cleaning out the garage. That's when I figured out that I didn't need a job, but I definitely needed a schedule. I started a small garden in the backyard. I just wanted something that would literally die if I didn't force myself to get out of bed to water it. It's just some cherry tomatoes and some bell peppers. Half of them are struggling because of the intense Florida heat, but they need me to take care of them. Having something that needs you is a massive deal when you're used to being in charge, even if it's just a vegetable plant. I also forced myself to find a Tuesday morning walking group at the local community center. It's not a lot, but it's a solid reason to get dressed in actual clothes. It keeps the days from completely bleeding into one another until you don't know what month it is. The second thing is the real, unvarnished numbers. I'm just going to tell you the real number because I think it's 100 times more helpful than being vague and dancing around it. My monthly income from Social Security and my small dental office pension is exactly $2,750. After I pay my monthly HOA fees, my Medicare supplement premium, my utilities, and my groceries, I have about $1,400 left over. Now, to some people out there, $1,400 a month sounds like a whole lot of extra fun money. I promise you it really isn't. Not when you realize that has to cover your car insurance and the gas in your tank. It has to cover the occasional birthday gift for my 4 grandkids. It also has to cover the unfortunate fact that everything down here seems to cost 20% more than I ever expected it would. I find myself sitting down and clipping digital grocery coupons for the first time in over a decade. I'll sit right here at this kitchen table and spend 15 minutes staring at my phone. I'm just trying to find a $1 off coupon for my usual brand of laundry detergent. My daughter Shelley thinks I'm oversharing when I talk about this stuff on the internet. She tells me to stop worrying so much and just enjoy my free time. But I firmly believe people need to know the reality. Retirement isn't just constant luxury cruises and fancy dinners out at steakhouses. It's standing in the aisle wondering if you should buy the name brand cereal or the store brand generic. You make those tiny choices every day just so you can afford to have a nice lunch with your daughter later that week without feeling guilty. You desperately don't want to dip into your small savings cushion for everyday expenses. I track every single dollar in a little spiral notebook I keep by the phone. Sometimes it honestly feels like I'm right back at the dental office managing the accounts. Except now the entire business is just me. It's a very different kind of pressure. You know in your gut that there isn't another year-end bonus or a pay raise coming to save you if you overspend on something silly. I also didn't realize how profoundly lonely it can get, even when you have your own family living nearby. Like I mentioned before, I moved down here to Florida specifically to be near my daughter Shelley. She lives only 45 minutes away in Tampa. But Shelley is a full-time registered nurse. She's got a husband and two busy kids of her own. She is actively building her life and managing a household. She absolutely cannot be my entire social life. She shouldn't have to carry that burden for me. I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I constantly felt like a nuisance asking her to come over all the time or asking to tag along to her kids' soccer games. My ex-husband Bob is a perfectly decent man. We were married for 33 years. We just grew apart slowly and then all at once, until there was nothing left to talk about. He's remarried now to a woman named Cheryl and living his own life back up north. We just stopped being married, that's all. There was no big dramatic fight. So it's just me rattling around in this house at night. My son Kevin lives way up in Cincinnati. He calls once a week, usually while he's driving home from coaching baseball. I love him, but a phone call from a car isn't the same as having someone sitting across the table from you. That's exactly why I had to swallow my pride and join that walking group I told you about. I just desperately needed to hear another adult human voice that wasn't coming from the television screen. It was incredibly awkward at first. I'm not exactly a social butterfly who loves working a room. Making brand new friends at 67 feels a bit like being the new kid in the middle school cafeteria. You have a lot more joint pain, but the deep awkwardness is exactly the same. I actually sat in my car the first day for 10 full minutes. I debated whether to put the car in reverse, just go home, and watch the news again. I'm so glad I didn't give up. There's a nice lady there named Brenda who used to be a school teacher. We walk slowly and talk about our struggling gardens and our grandkids. It's a small start. It gently reminds me that I'm still a part of the real world, even if I don't have an office to go to anymore. Then there's the quiet, constant uncertainty of the future. I don't fully understand why, but I worry about my physical health far more now. I worry more now than I ever did when I was working 50 grueling hours a week. Maybe it's simply because I finally have the quiet time to actually notice things. I notice every little sharp ache and dull pain in my knees when it rains. I notice that weird, loud clicking sound in my right shoulder whenever I reach up for a coffee mug in the cabinet. I've checked out 3 different thick books on Medicare from the local library. I think I understood maybe half of what was written in them, and that's being generous. Every single time a new medical bill comes in the mail, I get this tight little knot in my stomach. Every time a quarterly statement from my 401k shows a dip because the stock market had a bad week, my chest visibly tightens. I'm doing okay right now, but okay feels very fragile when you are living strictly on a fixed income. I think about my father, Stanley, a whole lot lately. He worked hard at the tire plant in Akron for his entire adult life. He retired at 62. He just seemed so incredibly happy puttering around in his messy garage and going fishing on the weekends. He watched baseball on a tiny television and never seemed stressed about money or getting older. He made getting older look so incredibly easy. I honestly don't know if he was just naturally better at it than I am. Maybe the world was just a much simpler, less expensive place back then. My sister Donna thinks I'm absolutely crazy for living in Florida anyway. She calls and complains about my hurricane risks and my rising home insurance rates. We argue about it warmly and often over the phone. But honestly, deep down, I think we're both just trying to convince ourselves we made the right choices with the time we have left. Another massive thing I wasn't emotionally ready for was the sheer shift in my personal identity. For over 40 years, when someone at a party asked what I did, I had a clear, respectable answer. I was the office manager. I was the person who kept things running smoothly. I handled the payroll and the scheduling. Now, when someone at the grocery store checkout or the library asks me, I just smile and say, I'm retired. And it honestly feels like I'm saying, I'm finished, like I'm done contributing. It took me several long months to realize something deeply uncomfortable. I had wrapped up my entire sense of self-worth and value in being productive for other people. Learning how to be just plain Linda has been the absolute hardest job I've ever had to tackle. I'm still actively working on it every single day. Some days I wake up and feel like I'm making real, tangible progress. Other days, I'm just the sad woman who spent 2 hours at Walmart deciding which brand of paper towels was the marginally better value. I catch myself looking in the bathroom mirror sometimes. I honestly wonder who this person is with all the gray hair looking back at me. I stopped coloring it a couple of years ago because it was too expensive. I miss the rushing feeling of being needed. I miss having a complicated problem that only I knew how to solve. Now, the biggest, most complex problem I usually have to solve is what to make for dinner so I don't waste the chicken leftovers sitting in the fridge. It's a profoundly humbling shift in perspective. I'm not going to sit here and pretend I've fully embraced it yet, because I haven't. Lastly, I have to mention the timing of it all, which is something that eats at me. I chose to file and take my Social Security at 66. At the time, I was just so completely burnt out and exhausted. I felt like if I had to handle one more complicated insurance claim denial, I was going to lose my mind. If I had to break up one more petty argument between the front desk staff, I would scream. So I filled out the online forms and took the money as soon as I could without a penalty. But now that I'm actually living on that exact amount, things look very different. I see how inflation is brutally hitting the grocery store aisles every week. I see the price of a simple package of ground beef and a dozen eggs going up every single month. I realize now that gritting my teeth and waiting until I was 70 would have given me a much bigger, more comfortable safety net. I can't go back in a time machine and change it now. I have to live with the financial decision I made when I was tired and emotional. That's a recurring, stubborn theme in retirement. You are constantly living with the consequences of the version of yourself that made decisions years ago. It's not a bad life. Truly, it isn't. I have a roof over my head and a family I love. It's just a very honest, stark reality. You can't hide from yourself or your choices when there's no busy office to escape to every morning. I spent so much precious time meticulously planning the exact finances. I memorized the spreadsheets and the account balances, but I completely forgot to plan the soul part of it. I forgot to ask myself what I actually liked doing when no one was paying me an hourly wage to do it. It turns out finding out who you are at 67 years old is a lot of hard, confusing work. I'm not going to sit here and tell you it all worked out perfectly like a movie. It didn't. Some months are a lot tighter financially than others. Some days I still wake up at dawn and feel that sudden, familiar surge of panic. I feel like I need to be somewhere important, only to remember I don't have anywhere to be at all. But mostly it's okay. I'm slowly learning to be okay with the quiet in the house. I'm learning that I'm more than just a person who efficiently answers phones and files medical paperwork. And I genuinely think that's something worth saying out loud. If any of this sounds remotely like your own situation, I'd really love it if you took a second and left a comment below. Tell me how you're handling that difficult first year. Specifically, what was the one thing about your new daily routine that you absolutely didn't see coming? Was it the crushing boredom? Was it the shocking grocery bills? Was it feeling invisible? I find reading your personal stories so much more useful than you'd ever think. It really helps to know I'm not the only one trying to figure this out on the fly. And if you want to keep figuring this out with me, I hope you stick around. That's what we do here. All right, that's enough from me today. Take care of yourselves.